Happy New Year and welcome to Transforming Age Live. My name is Torsten Hirsch. I'm your host today, and I'm excited to have all of you dial in for today's episode. TA Live, as we call it, is a quarterly live broadcast series dedicated to critical discussions around longevity and holistic successful aging. And we hope that you find inspiration and gain knowledge today that will help you in the work you do and in the life you want to live. In past episodes of TA Live, we've heard from change makers, infectious disease experts, vaccine researchers, scientists of numerous kinds, and even the mayor of Seattle. Transforming Age is a nonprofit network that provides holistic solutions for successful aging and longevity through our 5 mission spheres, which include housing, services, technology partnerships, and philanthropy, and our commitment to creating unlimited possibilities for older adults to live healthy and purposeful lives across the demographic and economic spectrum. Our mission and that of our many partners is critical, as we're at an inflection point with 1 in 5 Americans being over the age of 65 by 2030, which isn't that far away. To learn more about us, please visit transformingage.org. It's my pleasure to introduce today and host author and family physician Ana Negrón. Dr. Ana Negrón. Born and raised in Puerto Rico, Dr. Negrón, a board-certified family physician in Pennsylvania for over 3 decades, has made cooking with patients integral to her practice. She assists patients in transitioning to a whole food, plant-based diet in order to reduce inflammation, alleviate the need for many medications, and to help prevent or support treatment of a wide variety of chronic medical conditions, such as obesity, hypertension, high cholesterol, hyperlipidemia, diabetes, arthritis, acid reflux, acne, erectile dysfunction, asthma, and cancers. She also lectures to family physicians and medical groups about the role of food and illness in medical practice, about the interaction of multiple risk factors in patients. She is the senior faculty member of the Crozier Family Practice Residency in Springfield, Pennsylvania, and has served as faculty preceptor since 1996. Dr. Negrón is a member of the National Advisory Board for Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. She also volunteers at clinics for the uninsured and underserved, and has long served on the board of directors of the Phoenixville Clinic. Her book, Nourishing the Body and Recovering Health, The Positive Science of Food, published by Sunstone Press, emphasizes alternatives to society's reliance on pharmaceuticals in attempting to address health problems. With us today is also Stephen Van Pelt. He's the Director of Culinary Services at Transforming Age. Stephen is also an executive chef, and he has over 18 years of experience in culinary services, including at restaurants, many resorts, and serving older adults. Please note that what we discussed today does not constitute medical advice, and you should consult your physician about what's best for you. And lastly, if you have any questions, please submit them in the Q&A section, and we will answer them in the order received. Now let's get started. I'm super excited about today. Ana, why don't we start with you sharing your journey with us a little bit, and how you got into what you do today and what's so important to you and your patients.
First of all, thank you very much, and welcome all to this fantastic opportunity for me as a senior myself, 75 years old, to address my colleagues, my partners in life. When I went to medical school, I thought that I wanted to really help people stay healthy. However, I did not learn that. What I learned was how to identify disease symptoms and how to medicate them. So what a disappointment it was for me 20 years later to find that I was really adding a lot of medications to people who would never get rid of them, because it was really just medicating symptoms. I took a 2-year sabbatical, and I learned a lot about food in medicine, because I had also transitioned myself personally to a plant diet. And although I found that very rewarding, I did not really find that I had any information to really lend it or share it with my patients. So when I became really interested in food as medicine, and I learned so much, I realized that there was a mountain of evidence that my food choices were not just good for me, for my soul, but also for my patients. As I was introduced, I started cooking with patients in 2003 because telling you, eat a healthier diet doesn't really mean anything specific unless you really know what it is. And well, the rest is history. So right now, 35 years plant-based myself, a son who is 44 and plant-based himself, both of us without disabilities. Proud to be addressing young family physicians in the role of plant foods in medicine and teaching them how to not prescribe, but really de-prescribe. Isn't that something novel? How to really help people get off medications and live long lives free of as many disabilities as possible. Well, that's me in a nutshell.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Anna. When we discussed this on the pre-call, we talked about the general pillars of health. There's literature on this. Dr. Roger Landry called it "Live Long, Die Short." Tell us more about the general pillars of health, and then we'll do a little bit more deep dive into the nutrition aspect. And then I'll have a follow-up question for Stephen as well.
Yeah, the pillars of health are really, if you imagine, us humans in the very, very early stages of our development, it meant that we ate the food that was available, that we walked about to get it, that we ate during the hours of daylight, that we fell asleep when the sun went down, and we got up when the sun rose, and that we lived in communities that were really supportive and intimate and loving. And those are the pillars of health that have been found in the blue zones around the world. What a novel idea that National Geographic, just said, well, eat mostly plants, move every day, sleep 7 to 9 hours each night, keep low stress levels, do not smoke or use drugs, and keep in a community that's supportive of yourself. So we are rediscovering that those are the pillars that keep us, and these communities are known for living 100 years without disabilities. That's what we all deserve. That's the natural history of humans, except that we have changed our environment, and now that's really the greatest challenge for humans.
Excellent, thank you. And Stephen, following up on that, obviously you're working directly with many older adults in our communities and beyond. To the general pillars of health, socialization, the movement, the meal, good nutrition. What are you seeing out of the communities? How important is that to people? What's the meaning of a good meal for the people that we serve, but certainly for anybody in society?
I think it varies with depending on the individual, but it's especially with older adults, it's an important aspect of daily life is to try to live healthy, and I think we have a lot of but everybody has a different level of education about it and what constitutes healthy. Folks have they know that obesity is unhealthy, but gosh, how do I get there? And I think the information being shared by Dr. Negrón is it's great to kind of get more information out about what are the other health benefits of some of the great things that you can eat.
Excellent. And I'm sure gathering in a social setting for a meal is probably still one of the top priorities is from what we're seeing in the communities.
I think it absolutely is. Post-pandemic, I think that we as a society over the past few years have gravitated toward more and more takeout and dining alone. But as we emerge from that, people get they know that that's something that's important. They know that socialization is key to the total health. I mean, the mental wellness and everything. We're social folks and need to get out and meet with one another.
Excellent. So let's deep dive a little bit more on the nutrition aspect of those pillars. On a general nutritional approaches that you are talking to friends, family, and certainly your patients about, we have the food pyramid, essential versus non-essential. Let's unpack that a little bit more, what you're sharing with people and where you're seeing value for health benefits, and then we'll dive a little deeper.
Sure. Well, a little history journey. In 2010, the pyramid became a plate. And that plate, still has a lot of, it's really like it's a war field, where industry is really fighting to stay on our plate. However, it's become really evident that there are really 4 food groups, and they are vegetables, grains, legumes, and fruits. And I will show them in a slide in a minute. But, in 2010, the United States Department of Agriculture was forced to, because of the scientific evidence, remove meat from the plate because it's not an essential food. Still, it left, a code name like protein, and people still think that protein comes only from meat. So they are playing with our minds. And the dairy industry stayed as the only food that's mentioned by name attached to the plate. And I'm sure you're familiar with the plate. So, when we're talking about enjoying the most health without disabilities, the closest we eat whole plant foods, in other words, rice, beans, oats, quinoa, corn, wheat, all kinds of vegetables, spinach, lettuce, Brussels sprouts, kale, collard greens, all kinds of beans, lentils, chickpeas, red kidney beans, and then add to that mushrooms and all the root vegetables. The closest we eat those things in their natural form, and we mix and match them and cook them and season them with other plant spices, the closer we live healthy, longer, and without disabilities. As soon as we walk away from that or get removed from that plant kingdom, which is where the industry has tried to brainwash us and give us all the things that we don't really need, but that they really sell for a buck and for lining their pockets, the sooner we start to acquire the risk factors for getting overweight, diabetes, heart disease, inflammation, cancer, all the other symptoms that come, and lead to those diseases like gastroesophageal reflux and arthritis and mental fog and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, you're all familiar with the symptoms. So we can decide to live with a few symptoms or with a lot of symptoms or actually disease. So it's really a bargaining thing that we do throughout life, except this bargaining that we do, this negotiating, has become really, really hard. You have to get out of your way to maintain a dietary pattern that is mostly plants in their most natural form. Can you imagine that? So we're the same people of 10,000, 20,000 years ago, but we've created a landscape that is completely different. We no longer, forage for our food. We no longer walk to get it. We no longer eat during daylight hours only. We add all kinds of toxins to our diet and stresses, and we live really in silos. So imagine how conducive this is to live long and prosper. Really,
excellent. Thank you. Thank you. So just to recap, the 4 essential foods that you mentioned were vegetables, fruits, legumes, and grains.
Yes, correct.
Right? Okay. All right.
And I will show them in a slide in a few minutes.
Okay.
When you give me a chance.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's just share screen. Excellent. It's going to take a minute for the here we go. This is us today. Health is free, disease is expensive. And 80% of chronic disease is diet related. Imagine this. Oh, but it runs in my family. Yes, it does, through your kitchens. And it can be reversed or put in remission with the food that I'm talking about. Most of us are fortunate to be born in a state of good health. Why not hang on to it and live 100 years without disabilities? We know of the people in the blue zones all over the world, and in one place in the United States, Loma Linda, California, where people live like that. And we mentioned already the pillars of health. They are eat mostly plants, move your body every day, live with a purpose, get up in the morning knowing why are you living? What's your motivation for living healthy? Avoid tobacco and drugs, enjoy 7 to 9 hours of sleep at night. And that's a challenge with all our distractions. Limit toxic stress and feel supported by love and community. Our Western lifestyle, I mentioned that already. We don't really need to dwell on that, but it has really marketed heavily. Protein for muscle, milk for bones. All this is marketing. It has nothing to do with scientific evidence. And the ignorant advice from uninformed professionals is just really keeping this alive. It has resulted in an epidemic of chronic illness. And these are the diseases that I mentioned. This is the plate that I have just described to you, the USDA in 2010, and you see that there's no meat anymore, but the industry fought to keep protein as a code for meat. Protein, by the way, is the product of plant photosynthesis. Plants make all the protein in the world. If it wasn't for plants, there would be no protein. This is what it looks like in a real plate. And on the bottom right, you can see what Torsten was just talking about. The 4 food groups are fruits, all types of fruits, grains, which is, when we talk about grains, we talk about rice and quinoa and corn and wheat and all the different types of, buckwheat and all the different grains that you find now in the bulk aisle that are taken by the industry and made into breads and cookies and crackers instead of really us knowing what they are. Vegetables and mushrooms. Mushrooms are a kingdom in themselves, as you know. Mushrooms have claimed their right to be a kingdom. They're not part of the vegetable or the plant kingdom anymore. So remember mushrooms as a very important part of your food groups. Legumes, which are the seeds that grow in pods. And we're talking about all the beans, the lentils, the chickpeas, the red kidney beans, navy beans, white beans, fruits, all kinds of fruits. And the fruits are the baby of the plant, that part for which we really wait, and then wait until it's ripe and then eat it. Oh my gosh, we really love spring and summer for that. Those are the food groups. And when you look at a plate, that's what it looks like. All kinds of leafy greens, all kinds of mushrooms and baked root vegetables and grains and cooked lentils and shredded carrots and beets and you name it. I mean, you can make what's called sometimes in some circles a Buddha bowl, or a power plate to your heart's content. And water is our liquid. Water is our liquid. We stray from this diet and we get chronic disease. That's it. These are some of the people that I cook with.
Thank you for sharing that. So let's see here, Stephen, too, looking at that versus today's reality in terms of what you're serving, how is this true up?
It's interesting. I think the point about dairy and meat is as the source of protein in people's minds is something it takes time to change. People do. I mean, we need to serve what people want to eat. And because, certainly there's a demand for that meat, then we do serve quite a bit of it. But, if I think early in my career, if you were putting a vegetarian dish together and were to call out to a chef, oh, there's not enough protein, they often would fall toward cheese as the source. And I can say, that we, as we progressed, we look to legumes as being an excellent source for carbohydrates and for protein, and like they're kind of just a great, there's so much that can be done with them, and there's so many health benefits to trying to move that direction. So we in general are moving that way.
So you've seen from a trend perspective that people are looking for more plant-based or vegetarian, vegan options.
I think more,
or is that more still outliers in a way?
No, I think more and more are starting to try to do that. I hear often with older adults, well, I often hear some folks say that I'm not vegetarian, but I try to eat the vegetarian dishes often, and I think it's an important part of the equation that kind of has taken a bit of a backseat over the years, but is starting to come more and more to the forefront of our menus.
Excellent. So we've talked about the essential groups. We've talked about healthy options and what makes for a more holistic diet. Now, stuff goes in the mouth and then it goes to the digestive system, right? And there's, I think, a whole body of science and around gut health, digestive system. Let's unpack that a little bit, because I think that's oftentimes something that's not on people's radar, and really how important that is. Anna, what can you share there with us?
Sure. And before I forget, I want to just mention something. Our food choices are tainted by misinformation. Our thought that we need protein is so out of control. Americans are eating 2-3 times the amount of protein that they need. We need 10% of our calories to come from protein. We are made, folks, our bodies are protein and fat already made. So the protein we need is 10% of our calories, just to replace the hair we leave at the salon, the nails that we clip, the skin we leave on the sheets and the tub. I mean, of course, the cells that we poop out or pee out. I mean, we really are not talking about more than 10% of our calories. So when we say replacing meat, we replaced meat. We replaced beans a long time ago. Meat has been with us as the essential thing only for a few hundred years. This has not really been our source of nutrition. Okay, so that is.
Give us an idea when you say 10%. What does it look like in intake for an average male, female, maybe based on the average diet? How many grams, milligrams, or whatever are we talking about?
Grams, yes, between 40 and 60 grams of protein a day. Between 40 and 60 grams of protein a day. Now, if you think that you have to become a mathematician to count your calories and see how many you're getting from protein, I've only done that as an academic exercise to realize that as a plant eater myself, I get more than enough of my proteins by eating oats and fruits and rice and beans and vegetables, a baked potato, and some more fruit. That's it. There's really plenty. If you are not losing weight unintentionally, you got enough food to maintain your body. If your child, your grandchild is growing along their curve, they have enough protein to grow their bodies. So it's not, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that. our ancestors were very successful eating just what they found. We are, by the way, the result of those people. We are the result of people who just ate what they found. So just relax.
Just relax. All right, that's a good hands-on tip. Let's talk about gut health, digestive health, because I think that's a big topic that many people aren't too familiar with, or is not on people's radar in the context of holistic living, successful aging and a healthy lifestyle.
Yes, I will do that. And I really like to talk about holistic with a W. It's the whole thing. It's the whole body, the whole nutrition, the whole world. We're all one big organism, that plays off each other. Well, the 80% of what we know about our gut health, we have learned over the last 20 years. Can you imagine that? It's just become apparent to us how important it is. We have 5 pounds of bacteria in our colon because, when you eat, your stomach acid really pretty much sterilizes stuff. I mean, it just kills all the bacteria, which is a good thing. Remember, imagine that, that's our first line of defense, is really killing all the bad bacteria that you or your child or your grandchild might accidentally ingest by eating something that you picked up off the floor. All right, or pulled out of the ground. But all the way down, a few good bacteria made their way, and down the last 5 feet of 20 feet intestines is the colon. And there we have 5 pounds of bacteria. Why do they live there? Why have they taken up residence there? Well, they have found that we don't digest all our food. In other words, we have enzymes, digestive juices that can break down and get the nutrition only from a lot of the food, but not from the fiber, which is what is, part of the plants. Fiber, the soluble and the insoluble fiber, that external skeleton that gives the plants their ability to stand up straight and the ability to really hold up a lot of good nutrients inside it so that they are not all over the place, as a puddle. So when we cannot digest fiber, it would just pass through our gut and end up as waste, really waste. These bacteria say, wait, I want it. So they live in our gut and they do have the enzymes to digest it. So when the food refuse that we've not been able to digest gets to the colon, those bacteria are there, happy as clams, digesting that food. Now we call that food that bacteria eat the prebiotics, because you're familiar with the probiotics. Those are the bacteria. Prebiotics what we feed them, that fiber. And those bacteria, those probiotics, poop, because as they metabolize and digest the food, they put out waste. And that waste is called postbiotic. So the postbiotic has to be something that's beneficial to us. Otherwise, this alliance between bacteria and us wouldn't have lasted for thousands of years. So that postbiotic, or the product of that digestion, is then absorbed by our colon cells, absorbed into our bloodstream. And it's really very important, not just to keep the colon cells healthy, but also to maintain our immune system and to help us with the lipid metabolism. Imagine what a wonderful combination of living organisms this is. Now, there's also another group of organisms or bacteria or probiotics that like to eat meat, cheese, eggs, and oils. And they're postbiotics. In other words, what they poop is not so good for us. It's inflammatory. It actually is picked up, it's oxidized and then picked up by the liver and made into toxins that are associated with heart attacks. So those two populations of bacteria are in constant balance in our gut. Now, which one wins? Well, the one we feed. If you feed the ones that really are putting out great postbiotic food for us, then we're gold. But if we're eating the food that will encourage the bad bacteria, let's call them that, then we will be filled with toxins, inflammatory prostaglandins, cytokines, and all the symptoms that are accrued by people whose main diet is meat centered.
Yeah, that's super fascinating. I've heard a lot about the probiotic stuff, and you can get that with kefirs and all kinds of different things. But the importance of the biotics and feeding the right bacteria. So essentially, the why it's important to feed the good, what we would call maybe the good guys, is to essentially eliminate toxins that the bad guys produce, if you will. In other words,
to outcompete the other one.
Outcompete.
They'll
always be there, but we're looking for more heavily weighted good guy population.
And we don't need kefir and processed foods that are marketed for that purpose. What are the prebiotics? What are the foods that those bacteria need? Cabbage, oats, the 4 food groups.
Okay, all right, that makes perfect sense.
Exactly. So the market always steer us in the direction of spending money for them.
Excellent. So for all of us at home, as well as people like Stephen in a professional commercial setting, then it's obviously important to look at, okay, how can we feed the good guys and get the good stuff in? How do we go about that? Taking an inventory, you have the kitchen tour kind of as a tool. What can you share with us there on what we're looking for and how to even go about it?
You're talking to me?
Yes, sorry.
Okay.
Talking to you.
My virtual kitchen tour is just a fantastic exercise I came upon after having stumbled upon a lot of ways to get to know what people are eating, because I really wanted to know what people are eating, and diet diaries and recollections and memory tools never really worked. But if I ask you, what's in your kitchen right now, then the kitchen has no feelings. And you can really be very honest and tell me, oh, this is for my grandchildren, or this is for when people come, or somebody gave it to me, or this is for my partner, and you can always assign blame, so to speak, to somebody else for whatever poison you have in your kitchen. And we get to really understand what is your dietary pattern, because as a friend of mine says, if it's in your house, it's in your mouth.
That makes sense.
If you chose to keep it there, it's because at some point at 2 a.m, you're going to eat it. So I ask, what's on your tabletops and your counters. Then we go into the refrigerator, and this is an exercise I do with my patients on a regular basis, no matter what they came from. If they came for a driver's license, or unless they came for a broken bone, of course, I give them a break. Then we go in the refrigerator, the shelves, the deli drawer, the crispers, the freezer, and then the dry goods area, the pantry, the cupboards. And some people have, place in the garage or, under the bed. People stash food in very unusual places. So once we get an idea of what's in the house, food-wise, we underline the good things, circle the suspects, and we can talk about what to do about them, and whether you are really supporting health or supporting disease. And there's where the rubber meets the road, because now all pivots around your motivation and whether you are clear as to the purpose for wanting to make any change. And unless you're clear, unless you have a clear motivation, you can have all the knowledge in the world and you will get stuck in that pleasure trap.
Okay. So
now
from a
the
practical
work-
standpoint, how do you do this then? Via smartphone, people literally show you what's in their pantries. Is it the
Okay.
honor system? You know, you mentioned funny places to stash food. You must have been in my house, but you know, how do people do that either with their spouse or a friend, or you know, just the buddy system in general terms, if they're interested?
Excellent question. I don't like to use a camera or a smartphone or anything like that. I want people to remember, because that will also give me another layer of understanding. The things that you remember are the things that you place value, that you assign value to, or that you would like to assign value to. So I help people along, and I, you know, halfway through them, I say, well, do you have any eggs? Oh, yes, I have 3 dozen eggs. Why didn't you mention them? You know, so people are really either using food as white noise, you know, as it's always there and we replenish it. We don't really give it any thought, or it's so important that as soon as we go, you know, as soon as we only have, you know, a gallon of milk, we go get another one. So I like to have people just give me this as a memory thing.
Okay. So we've talked about obviously why it's important, what the essential food groups are, taking an inventory. So now we've kind of established, okay, here's where I am. Now there's what I would call notion out there that eating healthy is expensive. So let's talk about food accessibility and if so inclined, making that change, you know, after we've taken the kitchen tour. What can you share there with us in terms of accessing healthy foods? Is it really expensive? How expensive is it? Are there alternatives? How would one go about that?
Yes, this answer is very simple. It is very cheap. You know, if you are really inclined to eat fancy variety all the time, you can make it as expensive as, you know, I mean, to no end. But if you're eating rice and beans and some vegetables and some fruits, some nuts and seeds, this is $35 a week of fresh food. Once you have stashed some of the non-perishables, you know, like the dry beans, dry rice, dry oats, and some frozen foods. So it's really not expensive. Now, it might be a little bit far from you. So I'd say people have always traveled for good food. I mean, even the nomads, you know, our ancestors, I mean, they traveled for food. So, you know, every couple of weeks you can go with a friend and get a lot of fresh food, and then come and, for heaven's sake, cook it while it's fresh and freeze it. Now, if you want to go to a place where they triple wash it for you and they cut it and do all the preparation for you, you're going to pay a lot of money. And the other way you're going to pay a lot of money is if you're not going to swap your meat, cheese, eggs, and processed foods. If you are going to add to those processed foods, meat, cheese, eggs, the fruits and vegetables, legumes, and grains, then of course that's going to be an added cost. But you understand that we're talking about transitioning. So you're going to give up some things and gain some others.
There's also, I think,
we lost your audio.
Yep.
There's also kind of the farmers oftentimes will deliver. There's farmers markets, obviously. You know, there's kind of this whole farm to table that's become more popular over the last few years. Stephen, what are you seeing from a kind of from a commercial angle? Is there more access to healthy foods that makes it easier for us to offer those options of the essentials?
There is, and we've got you know, we've had partnerships with different different purveyors that help to bridge the gap between some, you know, local farms and our you know, our facilities. It's you know, it's always key to try to shorten that journey as much as possible, because it allows the, you know, those plants to stay in the ground a little longer and extract more nutrients from the soil, and you know, it's when you find that you're eating things out of season, they travel a long distance, and so they might be harvested early, or you know, not quite ripened. So there's a big trend throughout the food industry altogether, and we kind of embrace that.
Okay. So one of the big elephants here in the room is obviously meat. We've talked about it. Wanted to unpack that a little bit more. Anna, you mentioned, there's other sources of protein. What do you share with people, to alternative source of protein, but also, just people really liking, their steak once in a while, or, a piece of chicken or something. Tell us more just about that, how to best go about that.
Yes, thank you. I mean, we're still talking about protein and meat, as if it was really that important. And I've already talked about it, and we are still stuck on it. And we are a group of, enlightened people. So this is how stuck it is in our minds. If I tell you that we should really be concerned more with where we get our fiber, and where we get our carbohydrates, which should be in the whole food, in the potatoes, sweet potatoes, the oats, the quinoa, the rice, the beans, the fruits. That's our main concern. 80% of our calories should come from carbohydrates, but carbohydrates have made the root of, being bad. And I want to tell you, the bad carbohydrates are the ones that have been extracted from the food. In other words, the flour and the sugar. Just forget about them. But for 80% of your
carbohydrates
should be carbohydrates. Okay.
So
the meat is really, because animal protein, which is what meat is so much like us, like ours, because we're animals. It really has the keen capacity to turn on genes in us that create disease that should really be kept off, even if we have the blueprint to make them. This is how, diseases run in families. It's by turning on those genes, by eating meat, cheese, eggs, and processed foods. So if we think of meat as not essential at all, but something that you like the taste of, try some of it raw and see if you like it. And, you have to really season it with what? With plants. The spices come from plants. So start to make some transition in our heads, in terms of what is meat, and see that there are a lot of choices in the plant world that do not cause inflammation, do not turn on the genes of heart disease and cancer. And that could really, but you have to really want to do it, and that's where the hard work comes.
Well, let's talk about that. So for some people, it may seem daunting. Obviously, you've successfully worked with many of your patients and families. How does one go about changing behaviors? Going cold turkey, pardon the pun, but how do you make that switch? How do you make a lifestyle change, either to a fully plant-based or mostly plant-based? Non-processed. We've talked about the commercial availability, food availability is just so pervasive in our society. What do you share with people, helpful tips to get there?
What I have seen over time is that the people who make a 100% transition over a short period of time can get an experience in themselves and then make an informed choice. In other words, I have seen that people who try to do, 1 day a week, 2 days a week, a little bit here, a little bit there, they stay in that. Food is addictive. The food that we have been surrounded ourselves with is addictive. So it's like telling a person who is addicted to cigarettes, just smoke a few. You'll always be in that, wanting the cigarette, or alcohol, or any drug. Do you tell somebody who is a cocaine addict, just use a little bit? You cannot really get rid of that addiction pathway. So it takes about, 3 months, and perhaps you can shorten it to 6 weeks, but be short of that, it's really not worth, thinking that, oh, I tried it and it didn't work. No, if you make the decision, and I've seen people make the decision to do it 100% for 6 weeks to 3 months, then you can see in yourself and be surprised at the benefits that you didn't even imagine could come from making a transition to a whole foods plant-based diet. And I can give you some examples. People suddenly become more light, suddenly are sleeping better, suddenly they're going to the bathroom effortlessly, suddenly they have more energy, less fog, mental fog. Isn't that something as we age, or at any age, that we would like some more mental clarity? And then pains go away. And then that bloating or inflammation is gone. And there's untold symptoms, that only your or signs that only your physician will be able to measure. But your blood pressure, your blood sugar, your cholesterol, within 3 weeks, 6 weeks, they will plummet. If you don't do this 100% for a short amount of time, you'll think that it's too much trouble for very little gain. And I would be agreeing with you. If you're only trying a little bit, you're just going to be completely frustrated because you're not getting results and you're putting a lot of effort. So jump in the pool, jump in the cold pool, get it over with, and it'll feel warmer. The water will feel warmer very quickly.
And the water will feel warmer quickly. I love it. What about timing of meals? I think that's been a big subject as well. I heard you at the very beginning that our ancestors ate during daylight hours. There's been a variety of fasting trends out there, intermittent and this and that. What are you seeing there in terms of, what's best for the body, maybe mind and spirit, in terms of food intake?
It's so funny. I mean, when you live long enough and you see all these trends, being recycled and being reworded in ways that are modern. Yes, compressing your eating hours to 8 hours a day is a wonderful thing. Giving your body a fasting period, which coincides with the darkness, especially in the winter, is a wonderful way for your body to have a time to reboot, to recalibrate, to, send out the killer cells, to look for cancer cells and chomp them out and, get them out of corners where they have been hiding during the day. It also, helps you to put the short-term memory into long-term memory so that your memory improves when you are not really interrupting the cycles of your body's function all the time with another fig or another cookie or another coffee or another something else. Imagine you're reading a book and somebody is constantly coming to interrupt you. Could you get the gist of it? You have to get back to the first paragraph to get, you understand my point. So the 8 hours of eating from, will leave you enough hours of fasting. And that's what people call intermittent fasting. In other words, get up, don't eat right away, maybe have some water, some tea, some coffee, and then go for a walk. When you come back, then have your breakfast, maybe at 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, and then eat until it's dark. And then, do not stop eating. I mean, if you're eating plant foods, you're eating the food of our species. And, and if you have looked outside, the food of the species for a bird or a squirrel never got them sick or fat, right? So it's not going to do that to us either. And when it's dark, just close the kitchen and stop it, just do something else. Just realize that that's it. Tomorrow will be another day.
There we go. Thank you so much to both of you. That was amazing. We have a few questions that I'd like to get through because some of them are, all of them are really good, but some of them are hidden as follow-up questions to some of the stuff we discussed. Early on, we had Michael Garrett asking, how do you incorporate cultural traditions and preferences in healthy food shopping and meal preparation.
You never.
Anna, do you want to take that one?
Yes, you never get rid of them. I mean, you incorporate them because you never get rid of them. You simply eat the plant foods of your liking with the seasonings of your liking. You just don't add the poisons of Western civilization.
Okay. There we go. Tom Payton asked, are chefs and cooks at Transforming Age embracing plant-based cuisines as alternatives for residents? We kind of answered that, but Steve, I'll hand that to you.
Sure. I think, as time goes, we're starting to move more and more toward that mindset. So, it's a process that can take some time, and we also have to balance that against the desires of our residents. I think, there's a lot of folks that love meat.
Meat doesn't love them.
Joy Humberger asked, what about those people who suffer from severe reactions from eating legumes or those who have nickel allergies? Anna.
Sure. I mean, the nickel allergies, nickel allergy is the most common allergy known to humans, but it's mostly atopical. It's from contact allergy. I have not really seen it as an eating. So I'll address the other, which is the legumes. If you're eating legumes in big quantities and you're getting bloating, you're not encouraging your bacteria in your gut to get slowly bigger and more and stronger before you dump a lot of legumes in it. So start slow, cut back a little bit, a couple of tablespoons of lentils, start with that and increase it. Do not just say today and then stop until 2 weeks from now. You have to feed those bacteria on a regular basis. You will
find out in small doses, see what happens and kind of rewire the body, if you will, in the gut.
I mean, just feed your bacteria and they will multiply.
Okay. Beth Faljohn asked, how would you suggest one should begin making the transition? Or do you recommend just jumping in, abruptly making the change? We've had that answered already. Jump in and try it out to see the immediate benefits, I think was the answer, right, Anna?
Yes, but let's say that you're not in that camp and you are disciplined enough to make stepwise, approaches. Do that. Just don't get stuck with a Beyond Burger, which is it should never have been get stuck with. I mean, it's, if anything, a transition food.
We have a question by an attendee. All this information is helpful, amazing, a little overwhelming. Can you please share a place to start? Like 3 things we can do today.
Go and take a look at your kitchen.
Okay.
Look at and put stickers on all the foods that you think are suspect, are processed, the oil, the gallons of oil, and all the meat, cheese, eggs, and and then see if the plant foods can be better represented. See which ones you can start to remove. Become familiar with a few of the recipes that you already know are great and see if you can eliminate. I mean,
Right. Take an inventory is step 1, out the bad guys, and then draw on what you already know for using the essentials.
And make it grow. And there are a few websites, like the Center for Nutrition Studies, for example, where there are many, many recipes for those free, for those of you that need variety, and you can flip through them. They are from all ethnicities and cultural backgrounds. There are 21-day jump starts. I mean, there are a lot of places where you can get yourself help. Get a buddy, get somebody that's on your same level and be accountable to each other and move ahead. It'll be a fun adventure.
Excellent, thank you. We have 2 questions around sugar. Could you address sugars? And then I bake cookies, muffins, scones, fruit pies.
Sure. Well, as I mentioned earlier, flour and sugar are 2 ingredients that are taken out of the whole food. What can you use to sweeten your cookies and your cakes and your pies? Well, what about dates? What about all kinds of, sweet fruits, monk fruit, what about pineapples and very ripe bananas? So there are ways of, I bake cookies with I use no sugar, I use no oil, but my foods have carbohydrate and have oil in them. Why? Because the foods that I use are plant foods, and they are replete with carbohydrates and oils and proteins. So yes, you can do it. You don't have to suffer. You're, on the contrary, you're going to be so excited. Maybe.
Evan Haley asks, are there benefits for cleansing?
You know, yes and no. I mean, the cleansing, if it's really to soil again, it's not a good idea, right? If you're going to clean, to then, you know, go on a binge of bad food again. But let's say that you want to cleanse a transition, like for 2 days, you can go on a modified fast of orange and carrot juice, you know, and that will just give you a mindset of not cleansing really, but change your palate and mark a line on the sand where before and after the fast. In terms of cleansing, I consider our dietary habits as a cleansing habit. So it's not a diet, it's really the way you live. You live a clean diet, and over the course of a year and a half, all your cells are new and they are enjoying your new way of eating.
Thank you. Deborah Cohen has a question for Stephen. When will you offer more fresh greens, vegetarian foods that isn't all carbs? There's too much meat, fried food in the buffet at Soundbite. So this is very specific to one of our communities. Stephen, you want to address that briefly?
Sure. Yeah, I think, you know, it's you know, we work on, you know, we try to offer a great variety, and certainly we appeal in our communities to a large group of residents. The beauty of communities with many restaurants in them is we can offer different things in different places. It's not uncommon for someone to find they have a favorite restaurant, or, you know, they prefer one over the other. But I know that within our communities, our chefs, our culinary teams are always focused and looking at feedback that they get around, you know, what, you know, and use that to kind of help them mold their menus and make the decisions on what to serve and how to best serve our populations.
Thank you, Stephen. Cheryl King's asking, do you recommend organics if possible? Yeah, we haven't really talked about that much, the organics versus, you know, grocery store vegetables. Is there a difference? Does it matter?
There is a difference, and before it would be remiss of me if I didn't mention calcium in milk, which has been drummed on us as an important, you know, element. Calcium is found in all vegetables, in all fruits, in all grains, legumes, okay, so put that to rest. Our calcium needs are satisfied that way. Organic means that you are eating food that has more nourishment in them, because those foods have had to defend themselves from pests, from animals, from the radiation, and they have created in them more antioxidants, more phytochemicals. And when you eat organic foods, you are partaking of all that which the plant created for herself subsistence. The conventionally grown food, you know, has really no need to develop all these nourishing aspects of an organic food. However, I have to tell you that between meat, cheese, eggs, and conventional fruits, vegetables, grains, and legumes, I would choose, hands down, fruits, vegetables, and legumes, conventional, over any kind of organic meat, cheese, eggs. There's no way that you can avoid the toxins that the animal has accumulated over a lifetime, the pesticides that they have eaten, plus all the inflammatory side effects that it will pass on to you.
Excellent. We're at noon here. We have 4 more questions. I'll try to get through them. Is Meals on Wheels healthy? I know we had a discussion around food pantries, Meals on Wheels. What are your thoughts there?
They're not.
They're not. So got to make a switch there.
Yes.
Somebody's asking for the website. Conceivably, it was either the kitchen tour or maybe the recipe website.
Okay, the kitchen tour is not a website, is what
Okay.
I told you, and it's the second chapter in my book.
Okay.
The website is Center for Nutrition Studies. T. Colin Campbell. It's a national organization dedicated to advancing nutrition investigation associated with human health.
How does honey rank in the plant-based diet? Honey good? Honey not good?
It's a sugar, just like maple syrup, just like, you know, any other sugar. So use it in very small amounts if you want to for sweetening anything. But if you're using it a lot, remember that there are plants that are sweet.
All right. And then last, this is great, was on my mind too. What are your thoughts on oat milk and almond milk?
They are industrially made liquids from nuts and from grains. The almonds are very water-intensive crop. The oats are very, very not. In other words, they're very much more sustainable. However, when you look at the packages, just take a look and see whether they have added oils and sugars, which beside myself, why they have to add oils and sugars to a plant milk, you know, to just ruin a perfectly good thing. But it's to really make it stretch and make it more creamy, make it whatever. So try to have one that only has oats and water or almonds and water.
Excellent. Dr. Negrón, Stephen, thank you so much for an excellent episode today of TA Live. Dr. Negrón, one more time, what was the title of your book? People want to read up on it more?
Nourishing the Body and Recovering Health, right back there behind me.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you too. It was a phenomenal discussion, and I look forward to the audience to see you all again at our next TA Live next quarter. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for the invitation.